The pale yellow walls of the nursery had always seemed to radiate a hopeful warmth until that day. I watched Madison, my wife, as she meticulously arranged a mobile of tiny knitted elephants above the crib, a soft smile playing on her lips. The way she moved, so deliberately careful and gentle, had always melted my heart. Today, though, it felt like watching a carefully constructed stage play, a performance I was growing increasingly wary of. She'd insisted on doing all the decorating herself. She wanted it to be perfect. I now suspected, in retrospect, that she was creating this perfect haven for a child, the wrong child. We'd been together for 7 years, married for 4, and the pregnancy had been a dream come true. Or so I thought. The past few months had been filled with nervous excitement, endless discussions about names, and frantic midnight runs to the grocery store for her unusual cravings. We had a plan. We had a life together. In her eyes, that day, that perfect bubble still seemed to exist. The tension had started subtly, late nights at work, business trips I wasn't invited to, hushed phone calls in the other room. I dismissed them at first. We all had our quirks. But lately, the smiles hadn't reached her eyes. When she kissed me goodbye in the mornings, it had become perfunctory, like ticking a box on a list, like I was a chore rather than her life partner. My anxiety had started small, a little tickle in my chest, a niggle in the back of my head. As she reached her 3rd trimester, the feeling began to snowball. The quiet panic morphed into a terrifying dread, and then she began to distance herself. The idea to get paternity tests hit me like a lightning bolt. I'd gone over scenarios in my head, running them like a film on repeat. It was an uncomfortable feeling. Being suspicious of someone you had known for the better part of a decade, a woman you had made love to time and time again. I had imagined Madison would react to the test in every way imaginable. My heart hammered every night before sleep at the thought that this was all just a horrible figment of my imagination, that I was a bad man to distrust her like that. But a small voice in the back of my head told me not to ignore it. It was trying to tell me something I hadn't wanted to face. I ordered the at-home kit online, choosing the fastest shipping option possible. The swabs, the envelope, the whole process felt cold and impersonal. I felt sick to my stomach sending off a part of us that was going to make or break it. The wait was agonizing. Every ring of the phone made my heart jump. I kept picturing a perfect family portrait. Us smiling, with her holding our perfect, innocent baby. But now there were cracks. It was no longer the picture I had envisioned. The day the result arrived, I decided I was done living with this gnawing doubt. I picked them up at the post office and rushed home. Madison was humming some nursery rhyme while finishing the last of the details on the walls. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. As I stared at the results, the color drained from my face. My knees started to weaken. I found my voice, though the sound barely reached my ears. Madison, can you come here for a minute? I have something to show you. I tried to keep the panic at bay. I just had to show it to her, had to see her reaction with my own 2 eyes. She turned, that same placid smile gracing her face, and walked over to where I stood holding the document. What is it, honey? Are those the pictures you ordered? Did they print off the ultrasound we took last week? She asked, a glimmer of false excitement dancing in her eyes. She had no idea what was coming for her, how her world was about to crumble. This isn't an ultrasound, Madison, I said, trying to keep my voice even. It's the results from the DNA test. I handed the papers to her. She took them, confusion flickering across her face. Then something shifted. The light went out in her eyes as she read the words that confirmed what I already knew. Probability of paternity, 0%. Her face went white. Gone was the happy, glowing pregnant wife. Now, she just seemed vacant, her lips quivering, her hands beginning to shake as she frantically flipped the papers, as if the results were going to change if she looked at them enough. She let out a choked sob, then silence. W what? I don't understand, she whispered, finally lifted her eyes to meet mine. There was no fight in them, no anger, just panic, genuine panic. And I found myself becoming detached as I watched it unfold. The room seemed to spin around her. You understand perfectly well, Madison. This baby isn't mine. The calmness of my voice surprised even me. Who is he? Or do I need to go digging to find the father? I watched her flinch at my tone. It felt liberating. Tears streamed down her cheeks now as she sank to ground, still clutching the results in her hand. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just... She sputtered out, then looked up at me through a blurry gaze. It just did, okay? We've been through such a tough time the past year, and I was lost, and he understood. She continued to talk, like some sick, desperate soap opera. I could see in her eyes that she was searching for a glimmer of hope, that this was all just a bad dream. The anger finally boiled to the surface. I couldn't stand the way she was speaking, as if it were my fault, as if I was the one who broke her marriage. Who? I roared, my voice echoing off the now mocking nursery walls. I had tried so hard to be calm, but her pity-me charade was like a knife to the heart. It was almost like she was trying to manipulate me into feeling sorry for her. She flinched again, then hesitantly stammered out, It's Ben. Ben from the gym. Her gaze dropped to the floor once more. Then the ripped personal trainer, who had been texting her every evening until the small hours of the night. That Ben. The Ben I had politely said hello to a couple of times, with no idea the snake I had been harboring so close to my life. I took my phone from my pocket and quickly looked up his number. I'm going to call Ben. We are going to settle this here and now. She let out a panic whimper as I put him on speaker. It rang a couple of times before he answered, his annoyingly chipper voice filling the room. Hey, Madison, what's going on? Is everything okay? Oh, it's not Madison, I replied. He chuckled. Try and make conversation with an obviously awkward man, assuming that my presence was incidental. Well, I guess I'll get to know who this man is at some point soon anyway. No doubt this is Madison's husband, the father of her baby, or the lack thereof. The cheery disposition dropped immediately as the gears of his brain began to turn. I held the phone closer to Madison as I spoke. Do you have anything to say to Madison before I explain why we are speaking to you? The silence was deafening. Madison was curled up on the floor, a crying mess, while on the other end of the phone, Ben seemed to have forgotten how to breathe. Hello? I asked as a cruel smile spread across my face. He sputtered, I don't know what you're talking about. His voice was tight with panic, fear seeping through the facade of his usual swagger. The DNA test I'm holding in my hand tells me that the baby she's carrying isn't mine, and she told me you're the father. Surprise. Don't worry. I've given you plenty of notice before we go public, like to all your family and friends about how you two are now going to be publicly connected forever as parents to her bastard child. I said the word bastard in a very calculated way. I could feel that my anger was now burning at a more dangerous degree as I looked at Madison, who appeared increasingly faint by the second. He denied it at first, stammering and protesting, before devolving into a mix of fear and anger. He knew I had them both by the neck now. Look, man, he pleaded. It's not that simple. Madison was unhappy, okay? He was grasping at straws. His pleas began to sound weaker as I let it sink in for both of them that this had become an unavoidable and public matter now. The whole time I remained ice cold. All of the emotional turmoil that I had buried over the past few weeks, while piecing it all together, was now coming out. All the trust that was misplaced. All the love, gone into nothingness. I had to remain clinical. It was for survival at this point. I took control and began to lay out the plan I had formulated in the hours following the test results. First, Madison would sign over the house to me. She wasn't going to see a dime. The lawyers already knew the situation, so any attempts to get out of that would fall flat. You, Ben, would provide me with a hefty severance payment for my troubles, and you both would go about the rest of your lives without ever seeing or speaking to me again. I had rehearsed this part. I'd had days to sit on it, to come to terms with the absolute breakdown of everything I thought my life was. This wasn't the angry outburst I had longed to give them both. This was something else, a calculated form of revenge, where I got back everything they tried to take away from me. I could hear the panic in both their voices now, their pleas falling on deaf ears. No, please, Madison whimpered. Ben remained silent. I could tell he knew his time was up. I hung up the phone, walked to the front of the nursery. pulled off the mobile, and yanked it from the ceiling. The tiny knitted elephants thudded onto the floor, followed by some of the wall decals. I began to tear the room down piece by piece, tearing up at least a decade's worth of planning, dreaming, and all that she had touched. I had demolished it. Madison's world seemed to cave in around her as I continued to decimate what was meant to be our first child's room. There were sobs and cries coming from her mouth, but I barely noticed. This perfect life had been stolen from me, and now I was going to take everything I deserved from her and her pathetic lover. I calmly left the house and the shattered mess that was now my life, got in my car and drove. I had a house to prepare to sell, lawyers to talk to, and a brand new life ahead of me to build. She had her lover. They had each other. It was the least they both deserved after everything they had done. I pulled up to the stoplight, and in the rear-view mirror, I caught one last glimpse of her now empty life, and smirked to myself, satisfied.